They called her Safety First Emma because she always arrived early to check exit routes and spent lunch breaks testing fire alarms. At Northpoint Research Facility, she was the woman who reminded everyone about proper lifting techniques and made sure the coffee machine had safety warnings. But when 12 armed mercenaries stormed their classified government research lab, Emma Rodriguez became something entirely different. In 30 seconds, she would demonstrate why her Marine Corps' calcine had been phantom and why some skills never fade, no matter how deeply you bury them beneath corporate protocols and OSHA compliance forms. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun cast long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Northpoint Research Facility as Emma Rodriguez adjusted her navy blazer for what felt like the 100th time. Her fingers moved with deliberate precision, checking each button and smoothing every wrinkle until her appearance met the exacting standards she'd maintained long before stepping into the corporate world. The small silver safety pin on her lapel caught the fluorescent light, but like everything else about Emma, it told only the surface story. To her colleagues at Northpoint Advanced Materials and Research, she was simply Emma Rodriguez, the corporate safety coordinator who knew every fire exit, every emergency protocol, and every OSHA regulation by heart. They saw someone who conducted monthly safety drills with military precision and could recite workplace injury statistics from memory. What they didn't see was that those same hands had once held a Barrett M82 sniper rifle steady through sandstorms in Afghanistan, that the calm voice she used to explain evacuation procedures had once coordinated tactical strikes across hostile territory, and that the woman who spent her days ensuring proper ergonomic workstation setup had logged over 400 confirmed eliminations as a Marine Corps Scout sniper before an IED explosion left her with enough shrapnel in her shoulder to end her military career, but not enough to stop her from walking away from the life she'd known. Emma made her way through the pristine corridors of the Northpoint facility, her sensible black pumps clicking against polished concrete floors with the measured cadence that marked everything she did. Other employees hurried past, clutching coffee cups and discussing project deadlines, weekend plans, and a quarterly safety meeting scheduled for that afternoon. But Emma moved through their world like a careful observer, maintaining a constant state of awareness that her former squad members would have recognized immediately, even as she perfected the art of being helpful without being memorable, of ensuring workplace safety while remaining safely in the background. The Northpoint Advanced Materials and Research Facility housed nearly 300 employees across 12 floors of cutting-edge laboratories, administrative offices, and secure research areas. Built into the foothills outside Colorado Springs, the building combined the aesthetic appeal of modern corporate architecture with the practical requirements of a facility handling classified government contracts. Emma had memorized every detail during her first week, noting sightlines, defensive positions, and tactical advantages with the eye of someone who understood that environments could be weapons or shields, depending on how you use them. Her official responsibilities centered around workplace safety compliance, emergency preparedness, and risk assessment for a company whose research into advanced materials had attracted lucrative defense contracts. She conducted fire drills, updated safety protocols, investigated workplace incidents, and ensured that every employee completed their mandatory safety training. The work was methodical, predictable, and allowed her to use her analytical skills without drawing attention to their more specialized applications. What her colleagues interpreted as dedication to workplace safety was actually the disciplined application of tactical assessment to civilian environments. Director Marcus Thompson commanded the facility from the executive floor with the confident bearing of someone who'd built a successful company through superior technology and government connections. His corner office overlooked the research Laboratories where teams of scientists and engineers worked on projects that would eventually find their way into military applications. Thompson was a businessman first, someone who understood profit margins and contract negotiations, but whose experience with actual security threats was limited to quarterly briefings and insurance assessments. Security Chief David Chun managed the facility's protection protocols with professional competence, overseeing a team of guards who were well trained in corporate security procedures, but whose backgrounds were primarily in loss prevention and access control. They knew how to check identification badges, monitor surveillance cameras, and respond to routine emergencies, but their training was built around preventing theft and ensuring compliance with classified material handling procedures, not repelling coordinated military-style attacks. Emma had studied their security protocols during her orientation, noting strengths and vulnerabilities with the eye of someone who'd spent years analyzing defensive positions. The guards were disciplined and thorough within their area of expertise, but they operated under the assumption that serious threats would be handled by local law enforcement or federal authorities. Their equipment and training were designed for corporate security, not battlefield conditions. During morning briefings in the Security Control Center, Emma listened to daily reports about badge access logs, visitor schedules, and routine maintenance activities while mentally cataloging information that never appeared on official security assessments. She noticed patterns in employee behavior, identified potential security gaps, and tracked variables that corporate security protocols didn't consider relevant. Her suggestions about improved sightlines and enhanced communication systems were received politely but implemented slowly, if at all, because they seemed like the overly cautious recommendations of someone whose job required thinking about worst-case scenarios. The research laboratories housed projects that Emma wasn't cleared to know about in detail, but her safety inspections provided glimpses into work that clearly involved military applications. Advanced polymer research, ballistic testing data, and materials science projects that required specialized handling procedures. She understood enough to know that the information and prototypes housed at Northpoint would be valuable to foreign intelligence services, defense contractors, and anyone interested in staying ahead of American military technology development. Emma's daily routine began each morning at 6:30 with a comprehensive walkthrough of the facility, checking emergency exits, testing communication systems, and noting any changes that might affect evacuation procedures or security protocols. She reviewed incident reports, updated safety documentation, and prepared for the endless series of meetings that characterized corporate safety management. To her colleagues, these activities demonstrated admirable dedication to workplace safety. To Emma, they provided daily intelligence gathering opportunities that kept her informed about facility operations, personnel patterns, and potential vulnerabilities. The employee cafeteria served as an informal intelligence hub where Emma could observe staff interactions, monitor morale, and listen for information that might affect facility security. She sat alone during lunch breaks, appearing to review safety documentation while actually conducting surveillance of employee behavior and communication patterns. Conversations about project deadlines, security procedures, and visitor schedules provided valuable context about facility operations that never appeared in official briefings. Jessica Kim from Human Resources often sought Emma's input on workplace safety training programs, creating opportunities to discuss employee backgrounds, security clearances, and facility access protocols. Emma encouraged these conversations, while carefully avoiding any display of knowledge that would seem inappropriate for her position. She learned which employees had military backgrounds, who worked on the most sensitive projects, and how information flowed through the organizations. Hierarchy. Tyler Brooks, the junior safety officer, looked to Emma for guidance with the eager enthusiasm of someone new to corporate safety management. His questions about emergency procedures and protocol implementation provided cover for Emma's more detailed facility assessments, while allowing her to shape his training in ways that would prove useful if conventional safety measures ever proved inadequate. Tyler's respect for Emma's expertise made him a reliable source of information about facility operations and employee concerns. The quarterly safety meeting that afternoon would bring together department heads, security personnel, and administrative staff to review emergency procedures and discuss facility improvements. Emma had prepared her presentation with characteristic thoroughness, covering fire safety, medical emergency response, and evacuation protocols with slides that demonstrated comprehensive knowledge of facility layout and operational requirements. What she wouldn't discuss were the tactical assessments and defensive analyses that informed every recommendation. As morning shifted toward afternoon, Emma completed her routine inspections while maintaining the pleasant professionalism that her colleagues expected from someone responsible for workplace safety. She checked emergency lighting, tested communication systems, and reviewed visitor access logs with movements that appeared routine, but were actually gathering intelligence about facility status and security posture. The building hummed with normal activity as employees focused on their projects, unaware that their safety coordinator was continuously assessing threats they couldn't imagine and preparing for contingencies that corporate security protocols never contemplated. Emma understood something that her colleagues had never considered. Workplace safety wasn't just about preventing accidents and ensuring compliance with regulations. In a facility housing classified research and defense contracts, safety meant being prepared for threats that could arrive without warning and require responses that went far beyond calling security or evacuating through marked exits. The skills that made her an effective safety coordinator were the same ones that had kept her alive through multiple combat deployments, and she maintained both sets of capabilities with equal dedication. The afternoon security briefing showed normal patterns, employee badge access within expected parameters, no unusual visitor requests, and routine maintenance schedules proceeding on time. Security Chief Chun reviewed the daily reports with professional satisfaction, noting that all systems were functioning properly and no significant incidents had occurred. The briefing concluded with the same confidence that marked every routine day at Northpoint, the assumption that tomorrow would proceed with the same predictable efficiency as today. But Emma noticed details that didn't appear in official reports. Unusual vehicle activity in the parking area, service personnel whose credentials she hadn't personally verified, and communication patterns that suggested more coordination than typical maintenance work required. The inconsistencies were subtle, possibly meaningless, but they formed a pattern that her tactical training wouldn't let her ignore. Something was building toward the Northpoint facility, something that conventional security assessments weren't designed to detect. As employees prepared for the afternoon safety meeting, Emma made final preparations that went beyond updating presentation slides and checking audio-visual equipment. She confirmed escape routes, identified defensive positions, and mentally reviewed contingency plans that she hoped would never be necessary. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The quarterly safety meeting would proceed with its usual focus on compliance and prevention, but Emma Rodriguez would be ready for whatever might test whether workplace safety sometimes required capabilities that couldn't be listed on any corporate resume. The Northpoint Research Facility continued its afternoon routine, confident in its security measures and focused on research that would advance American defense capabilities. But in the mountains outside Colorado Springs, Emma Rodriguez maintained vigilance that went far beyond anything her job description required, watching for threats that her colleagues couldn't imagine and preparing to use skills that Safety First Emma was never supposed to possess. The photograph tucked behind Emma's insurance cards showed a different woman entirely. Staff Sergeant Emma Rodriguez, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, stood in desert camouflage beside a Barrett M82 sniper rifle, her face lean and sun-weathered, eyes holding the 1,000-yard stare that came from watching enemies through high-powered scopes across hostile terrain. The Marine Corps' cross pinned to her dress blues in another photo represented a mission in Helmand, province where she'd held off an entire Taliban assault force for 6 hours, eliminating targets at distances that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible with standard military equipment. To the employees at Northpoint Research Facility, Emma Rodriguez was the woman who posted workplace safety reminders in break rooms and conducted fire drills with obsessive attention to timing and procedure. They saw someone who could recite OSHA regulations from memory and never missed a detail in her incident reports. What they couldn't see was that her precision in safety protocols came from years of calculating bullet trajectories, wind compensation, and target acquisition under combat conditions where missing meant watching your squad members die. The transition from military service to corporate safety management hadn't happened by choice. The IED explosion outside Kandahar had filled her left shoulder with enough shrapnel to end her sniper career, though not enough to prevent her from qualifying expert on every weapons system the Marine Corps issued. The medical discharge papers cited permanent disability, but Emma knew the real issue wasn't physical limitation. It was psychological assessment results that suggested she'd adapted too well to combat conditions, become too comfortable with violence as a solution to tactical problems. Her apartment in Colorado Springs contained artifacts of 2 different lives carefully separated by necessity. The living room displayed her college degree in occupational safety, CORPORATE, training certificates, and professional development awards that supported her civilian identity. But the bedroom closet held a rifle case containing a custom-built precision shooting system that she maintained with religious dedication, along with logbooks documenting practice sessions at remote mountain ranges where she could verify that her skills remained sharp without attracting attention from authorities, who might question why a corporate safety coordinator needed to maintain sniper-level marksmanship. The decision to pursue workplace safety as a career had been strategic rather than passionate. The field required attention to detail, systematic thinking, and the ability to anticipate dangerous situations before they developed, skills that translated directly from military tactical assessment. More importantly, safety coordinators were expected to know building layouts, emergency procedures, and personnel locations, information that would prove invaluable if civilian life ever became as dangerous as military service had been. Emma's military service record remained classified at levels that civilian employers couldn't access, allowing her to present a carefully edited version of her background that emphasized leadership experience and attention to detail, without revealing the specific nature of her combat operations. Her references included officers who understood the need for operational security and provided recommendations that supported her civilian career goals without compromising mission classifications or revealing capabilities that might make employers uncomfortable. The advanced marksmanship skills that had made her one of the Marine Corps' most effective scout snipers required constant maintenance through practice sessions that Emma conducted in remote locations throughout the Colorado mountains. She'd identified shooting ranges where she could verify zero on her rifle systems, practice long-distance accuracy, and maintain the muscle memory that allowed precise shot placement under stress. These sessions were carefully scheduled to avoid creating patterns that might attract attention, disguised as hiking trips or photography expeditions that explained her presence in isolated areas. Her tactical knowledge extended far beyond marksmanship, to include close-quarters combat, explosive device recognition, surveillance detection, and threat assessment techniques that had kept her alive through 4 combat deployments. Emma maintained proficiency in these areas through training routines that appeared to be standard fitness activities, but actually preserved combat-specific skills. Her morning runs included movement exercises that maintained tactical mobility, while her gym workouts focused on strength and endurance requirements for combat operations rather than general fitness goals. The psychological aspects of transitioning from combat operations to civilian life had required Emma to develop personas that could function in peaceful environments while maintaining readiness for violent encounters. Safety First Emma was carefully constructed to be helpful but unremarkable, competent but non-threatening, visible enough to do her job effectively, but forgettable enough to avoid scrutiny. The persona allowed her to gather intelligence, assess threats, and maintain tactical awareness while appearing to focus exclusively on workplace safety compliance. Emma's understanding of security vulnerabilities came from studying facilities as potential targets rather than simply identifying safety hazards. Her recommendations about improved lighting, enhanced communication systems, and modified evacuation procedures were based on tactical assessments that considered how hostile forces might exploit weaknesses in facility design or security protocols. These insights were valuable enough to improve actual security, but she presented them as safety improvements to avoid questions about why a corporate safety coordinator possessed advanced knowledge of defensive operations. The classified research conducted at Northpoint made the facility a potential target for foreign intelligence services, industrial espionage operations, or terrorist groups interested in disrupting American defense capabilities. Emma recognized these threats through military intelligence training that civilian security personnel hadn't received, allowing her to identify vulnerabilities and develop contingency plans that went far beyond standard corporate security measures. Her knowledge of enemy tactics, surveillance techniques, and assault methodologies provided threat assessment capabilities that her colleagues couldn't match. Dr. Amanda Foster supervised research teams working on projects that Emma wasn't cleared to know about in detail, but her safety inspections provided opportunities to observe security measures, personnel behavior, and operational patterns that revealed the scope and importance of the work being conducted. The combination of advanced materials research, defense contractor relationships, and government funding suggested projects that foreign adversaries would consider high-value targets worthy of significant operational risk. The vehicle surveillance Emma had noticed in recent weeks showed patterns consistent with professional reconnaissance rather than random criminal activity. The timing, positioning, and coordination suggested organized intelligence gathering by personnel with military or intelligence training. Emma documented these observations in personal notes that she kept separate from official safety reports, building a threat assessment that corporate security protocols weren't designed to detect or counter. Emma's daily facility inspections allowed her to identify defensive positions, fields of fire, and tactical advantages that could prove valuable if the Northpoint facility ever came under attack. She knew which areas provided cover from small arms fire, which routes offered concealed movement between floors, and which equipment could be improvised into defensive barriers or weapon systems. This knowledge was disguised as safety consciousness, but it actually represented comprehensive tactical analysis of the facility's defensive potential. The employee evacuation procedures that Emma had developed appeared to focus on fire safety and medical emergencies, but they actually incorporated tactical withdrawal techniques that would minimize casualties during hostile action. Her recommendations about assembly points, communication procedures, and personnel accountability were based on combat experience with moving non-combatants through dangerous areas while maintaining operational security and avoiding enemy contact. Security Chief Chun's background in corporate protection provided excellent training for managing routine threats, but his experience didn't include countering organized military-style attacks by personnel with advanced tactical training. Emma recognized this limitation without feeling comfortable explaining how she knew that conventional security measures would prove inadequate against determined professional adversaries. Her suggestions about enhanced security protocols were carefully framed as general improvements rather than specific countermeasures for threats that civilian security chiefs weren't trained to anticipate. The afternoon safety meeting would provide Emma with opportunities to observe employee reactions to emergency procedures while assessing which personnel might prove useful during actual crisis situations. Her presentation would cover standard safety topics, but she would also be evaluating leadership potential, stress responses, and tactical thinking among employees who might need to function as assets rather than liabilities if workplace safety ever required capabilities beyond fire, extinguisher operation, and first aid administration. Emma moved through the Northpoint facility like a ghost with a clipboard, present in every important area but invisible to the decision-makers who determine security policies and emergency procedures. Her safety coordinator badge granted access to restricted areas, classified research labs, and executive offices, allowing her to conduct comprehensive assessments while appearing to focus exclusively on workplace safety compliance. The irony wasn't lost on her that the same administrative position that made her expertise irrelevant also provided perfect cover for gathering intelligence about threats that conventional security assessment would never detect. During morning facility inspections, Emma documented safety compliance issues that doubled as tactical reconnaissance. Her reports about inadequate lighting in stairwells included assessments of concealment opportunities for hostile forces, recommendations for improved emergency communication systems, incorporated countermeasures for electronic warfare techniques that foreign intelligence services might employ, suggestions about modified evacuation routes, considered how civilian personnel could be moved safely during combat operations. Every safety improvement she proposed served dual purposes that her colleagues never suspected. The research laboratories presented unique challenges that corporate safety protocols weren't designed to address. Emma's inspections revealed security vulnerabilities that existed because safety requirements conflicted with operational security measures. Classified research areas required controlled access, but fire safety demanded multiple egress routes. Chemical storage protocols prioritized environmental protection over defensive considerations. Equipment placement optimized research efficiency rather than tactical movement. Emma identified these conflicts while maintaining the appearance of focusing solely on OSHA compliance and workplace injury prevention. Dr. Amanda Foster appreciated Emma's thorough approach to laboratory safety, but remained unaware that the recommendations she implemented actually enhanced the facility's defensive potential. When Emma suggested relocating chemical storage away from exterior walls, Dr. Foster saw logical protection against potential contamination from outside sources. She didn't recognize that the new configuration also eliminated opportunities for hostile forces to create breaching charges using laboratory materials. The safety improvements served legitimate purposes while secretly addressing threats that civilian researchers couldn't imagine. Tyler Brooks followed Emma's guidance with enthusiastic dedication, learning safety procedures that incorporated tactical elements without understanding their military applications. When Emma taught him to position emergency equipment for optimal accessibility, Tyler focused on response time improvements rather than recognizing defensive positioning principles. Her instruction about personnel accounting during evacuations emphasized communication techniques that could function during electronic warfare conditions. Tyler learned these procedures as advanced safety management without realizing he was receiving basic tactical training. The Security Control Center provided Emma with access to surveillance systems, access logs, and threat assessment reports that revealed gaps between actual security capabilities and the threats they might face. Security Chief Chun's briefings focused on routine concerns like badge compliance and visitor management, while Emma mentally cataloged information about response times, equipment limitations, and personnel deployment that would prove critical during actual combat operations. Her presence during security meetings was welcomed because safety coordination required understanding protection protocols. But her real value lay in tactical knowledge that civilian security personnel didn't possess. Emma's relationship with the security staff was carefully managed to maintain her cover while gathering intelligence about their capabilities and limitations. She participated in emergency drills that tested response procedures, observing reaction times, communication effectiveness, and decision-making under pressure. The security guards performed their duties with professional competence, but Emma recognized that their training was designed for corporate threats rather than military-style attacks by personnel with advanced tactical capabilities. The employee cafeteria served as Emma's primary intelligence gathering location, where casual conversations revealed information about research projects, security concerns, and facility operations that never appeared in official reports. She positioned herself to overhear discussions between researchers about project deadlines, security personnel about protection protocols, and administrative staff about visitor schedules and maintenance activities. The information was fragmented and seemingly insignificant, but Emma's intelligence training allowed her to synthesize disparate details into comprehensive threat assessments. Jessica Kim's discussions about personnel security clearances provided Emma with insights about which employees had access to the most sensitive projects, who might be targeted for compromise by foreign intelligence services, and how information flowed through the organization's hierarchy. Emma encouraged these conversations while carefully avoiding displays of knowledge that would seem inappropriate for a safety coordinator. She learned about employee backgrounds, family situations, and financial pressures that could make personnel vulnerable to recruitment or coercion by hostile forces. The facility's proximity to military installations in Colorado Springs created additional security considerations that civilian protection protocols didn't adequately address. Emma understood that the area's concentration of defense-related facilities made it a priority target for foreign intelligence operations, and that successful attacks against any facility could trigger enhanced security measures that would affect operations throughout the region. Her assessments incorporated these broader strategic considerations while maintaining focus on immediate facility protection requirements. Director Marcus Thompson's confidence in existing security measures reflected the corporate assumption that serious threats would be handled by law enforcement or federal authorities before they could affect facility operations. Emma recognized this as a dangerous misconception based on civilian experience with crime rather than military understanding of organized attacks by trained personnel. The response times required for outside assistance exceeded the duration of most tactical operations, meaning that facility personnel would need to handle initial threat response without external support. Emma's safety recommendations often addressed vulnerabilities that security assessments missed because they focused on different threat models. When she suggested enhanced lighting for parking areas, Thompson saw cost-effective liability reduction. Sean viewed improved visibility as deterrent for routine criminal activity. Emma understood that proper illumination would prevent hostile surveillance teams from establishing concealed observation posts while providing defensive advantages for facility personnel during night operations. The improvements served multiple purposes that justified implementation without revealing her tactical reasoning. The quarterly budget review provided Emma with opportunities to advocate for security enhancements disguised as safety improvements. Her proposals for upgraded communication systems, enhanced emergency lighting, and improved access controls were presented as compliance requirements and liability reduction measures. The actual benefits included countermeasures for electronic warfare, tactical lighting for combat operations, and security improvements that would delay or prevent hostile penetration of critical areas. Emma's budget presentations emphasized cost savings and regulatory compliance while secretly building defensive capabilities. The maintenance staff's access to all facility areas made them valuable intelligence sources about building modifications, equipment installations, and security upgrades that might not be documented in official reports. Emma developed working relationships with maintenance personnel by focusing on safety compliance issues that affected their work, learning about facility systems, structural modifications, and equipment capabilities that could prove tactically significant. The maintenance teams appreciated her attention to their safety concerns while unknowingly providing intelligence about facility capabilities and vulnerabilities. Emma's position as safety coordinator made her the logical point of contact for emergency response planning, allowing her to influence procedures and protocols in ways that enhanced tactical effectiveness while appearing to focus on civilian safety requirements. Her evacuation plans incorporated military movement techniques. Her communication procedures included countermeasures for electronic interference, and her emergency assembly points provided tactical advantages that civilian planners wouldn't recognize. The improvements enhanced actual safety while secretly preparing for threats that conventional emergency planning didn't consider. The challenge of maintaining her cover while gathering necessary intelligence required Emma to balance professional competence with calculated ignorance about military matters. She needed to demonstrate enough expertise to be effective in her position, while avoiding displays of knowledge that would raise questions about her background. The performance required constant attention to detail and careful management of conversations that might reveal capabilities she wasn't supposed to possess. As afternoon shifted toward evening, Emma completed her daily assessments with the satisfaction of knowing that her invisible expertise was gradually improving the facility's defensive potential without compromising her cover or creating suspicion about her true capabilities. The Northpoint facility continued its routine operations, while unknowingly benefiting from tactical analysis and threat assessment that went far beyond anything corporate safety coordination was supposed to provide. The Northpoint Research Facility operated on a carefully orchestrated schedule that balanced research productivity with security requirements, creating routines that provided both operational efficiency and predictable patterns that Emma monitored. With the constant vigilance of someone who understood how predictability could become vulnerability, the facility housed 300 employees across 12 floors of laboratories, offices, and secure research areas, each containing personnel and equipment that represented millions of dollars in government investment and years of advanced scientific development. Director Marcus Thompson presided over operations from the executive floor with confidence, built on 5 years of successful government contracts and steadily expanding research capabilities. His background in business development and project management had prepared him to navigate the complex requirements of defense contracting. But his experience with security threats was limited to insurance assessments and quarterly briefings that assumed hostile action would be handled by law enforcement authorities before affecting facility operations. Thompson's office overlooked the main laboratory complex where teams of researchers worked on projects that would eventually enhance American military capabilities in ways that foreign adversaries would consider worth significant operational risk to obtain or destroy. The research conducted at Northpoint focused on advanced materials with military applications, including polymer composites for body armor, ceramic components for vehicle protection systems, and specialized coatings for aircraft and missile systems. Dr. Amanda Foster supervised teams whose work pushed the boundaries of materials science, creating innovations that could provide decisive advantages in future conflicts. The combination of theoretical research and practical application made Northpoint's projects valuable to foreign intelligence services interested in matching or countering American technological advantages. Security Chief David Chun managed facility protection with professional competence that reflected extensive training in corporate security procedures and government compliance requirements. His team of 12 security guards maintained access controls, monitored surveillance systems, and ensured that classified materials handling protocols were followed precisely. Chun's background in military police had provided foundation training in security operations, but his civilian experience focused on preventing theft and ensuring regulatory compliance rather than repelling organized attacks by personnel with advanced tactical training. The Security Control Center served as the facility's operational nerve center, monitoring access points, surveillance cameras, and alarm systems through sophisticated equipment that provided comprehensive coverage of all facility areas. The guards maintained constant communication with each other and could summon law enforcement assistance within minutes of detecting threats. Their procedures were thorough and well-rehearsed, designed to handle routine security incidents while maintaining the controlled environment required for classified research operations. Emma's position as safety coordinator provided legitimate access to all facility areas and comprehensive knowledge of personnel schedules, emergency procedures, and operational protocols. Her daily inspections covered every floor, from the administrative offices on the upper levels to the secure laboratories in the basement complex. She knew which researchers worked on the most sensitive projects when maintenance personnel accessed restricted areas and how information flowed through the facility's hierarchy. This knowledge was essential for effective safety coordination, but also provided intelligence that would prove valuable if the facility ever came under attack. The morning security briefing revealed routine patterns that demonstrated the facility's normal operational status. Badge access logs showed employees arriving within expected timeframes. Visitor schedules included only pre-approved personnel, with proper clearances, and maintenance activities proceeded according to established protocols. Security Chief Chun reviewed these reports with satisfaction, noting that all systems were functioning properly and no significant incidents had occurred during the previous 24 hours. Emma attended these briefings as part of her safety coordination responsibilities, but her analysis went beyond routine security concerns to include threat assessment considerations that civilian protection protocols didn't address. She noted patterns in employee movement, identified periods of reduced security coverage, and monitored variables that could indicate surveillance or reconnaissance by hostile forces. Her observations remained focused on safety-related concerns to maintain her cover, but her real attention was directed toward detecting signs of organized intelligence gathering or attack preparation. The facility's daily routine included shift changes, delivery schedules, and visitor arrivals that created predictable patterns in security, posture, and personnel deployment. Emma understood that these routines provided opportunities for hostile forces to conduct surveillance, plan attack routes, and identify optimal timing for operations against the facility. Her safety recommendations often address these vulnerabilities indirectly, suggesting schedule modifications and procedure changes that would disrupt predictable patterns while appearing to focus on efficiency improvements and liability reduction. Dr. Foster's research teams worked on projects with varying levels of classification, but even the least sensitive materials had potential military applications that foreign adversaries would consider valuable intelligence targets. The combination of theoretical research and practical testing created opportunities for technology transfer that could affect American military advantages in future conflicts. Emma's safety inspections of research areas provided insights into project scope and security measures, while allowing her to assess vulnerabilities that conventional security assessment might miss. The employee population included personnel with diverse backgrounds and expertise, but most lacked experience with security threats beyond routine workplace concerns. Emma identified individuals who might prove useful during crisis situations, while noting others who could become liabilities if emergency procedures required quick thinking and calm responses under pressure. Her safety training programs incorporated stress response techniques and emergency decision-making exercises that would enhance personnel effectiveness during actual crises. Tyler Brooks demonstrated enthusiasm for learning safety procedures that incorporated tactical elements without understanding their military applications. His training in emergency communication protocols included techniques that would function during electronic warfare conditions. His instruction in evacuation procedures emphasized movement techniques that minimized exposure to hostile observation or fire. Emma's guidance provided Tyler with capabilities that exceeded standard corporate safety training while maintaining focus on civilian emergency response requirements. The afternoon schedule included the quarterly safety meeting that would bring together department heads, security personnel, and administrative staff to review emergency procedures and discuss facility improvements. Emma had prepared presentations that covered standard safety topics while incorporating recommendations based on tactical assessment and threat analysis. Her suggestions about communication enhancements, evacuation improvements, and security upgrades were carefully framed as regulatory compliance and liability reduction measures rather than military preparedness initiatives. Jessica Kim's human resources responsibilities included personnel security, clearance management, and background investigation coordination that provided Emma with insights about employee reliability and potential vulnerability to foreign recruitment efforts. Their conversations about training requirements and security awareness programs allowed Emma to influence personnel development in ways that enhanced facility security, while appearing to focus exclusively on workplace safety and regulatory compliance issues. The maintenance staff's comprehensive facility access made them valuable sources of intelligence about building systems, structural modifications, and equipment installations that could affect tactical operations. Emma's relationships with maintenance personnel were built on legitimate safety concerns that affected their work, but the information she gathered included details about facility capabilities and vulnerabilities that could prove critical during combat operations. The maintenance teams appreciated her attention to their safety while unknowingly providing tactical intelligence. Director Thompson's afternoon schedule included meetings with government contract managers and research team leaders that would determine project priorities and resource allocation for the coming months. These discussions shaped facility operations in ways that affected security requirements and threat exposure, but the participants focused on technical and business considerations rather than protection concerns. Emma's access to meeting schedules and project updates provided insights about facility importance and vulnerability that guided her threat assessment activities. The facility's location in Colorado Springs placed it within a region containing numerous military installations and defense contractors, creating a target-rich environment that foreign intelligence services might consider worth significant operational investment. Emma understood that successful attacks against any major facility could trigger enhanced security measures throughout the area, affecting operations and research activities across multiple installations. Her assessments incorporated these broader strategic considerations while maintaining focus on immediate facility protection requirements. Security Chief Chun's afternoon briefing covered routine patrol schedules, visitor management procedures, and equipment maintenance activities that demonstrated the facility's normal security posture. The guards maintained professional competence in their assigned duties, but Emma recognized that their training was designed for corporate security threats rather than military-style attacks by organized forces with advanced tactical capabilities. Her observations during these briefings provided insights about security capabilities and limitations that would prove valuable if conventional protection measures ever proved inadequate. As the afternoon progressed toward the scheduled safety meeting, Emma completed her daily assessments with growing concern about surveillance activities and coordination patterns that suggested organized intelligence gathering by personnel with professional training. The indicators were subtle and possibly innocent, but they formed a constellation of details that her tactical experience wouldn't allow her to dismiss as coincidence. Something was building toward the Northpoint facility and the corporate security Measures that protected against routine threats might prove inadequate against the level of sophistication she was beginning to detect. Emma's morning facility inspection revealed subtle inconsistencies that civilian security protocols weren't designed to detect. Small deviations from normal patterns that individually meant nothing but collectively suggested coordinated surveillance by personnel with professional training. The delivery truck that had appeared in the parking area 3 times in the past week carried legitimate courier company markings, but the driver's positioning and observation patterns indicated intelligence gathering rather than routine package delivery. The maintenance personnel who had requested access to utility areas showed proper credentials and work orders, but their interest in facility layout and security systems exceeded normal service requirements. The vehicle surveillance that Emma had been monitoring showed progression from casual reconnaissance to detailed target analysis, with observation posts established at locations that provided comprehensive coverage of facility entrances, personnel movement patterns, and security patrol routes. The timing and coordination indicated professional intelligence, gathering by personnel who understood surveillance detection and counter-surveillance techniques. Emma documented these observations in personal notes that she kept separate from official safety reports, building a threat assessment that corporate security procedures weren't designed to recognize or counter. During her inspection of the parking garage, Emma noticed fresh tire marks and oil stains that indicated vehicles had been positioned for extended observation periods during overnight hours when security coverage was reduced. The positions provided clear sight lines to employee entrance areas and loading dock activities while remaining concealed from routine security patrols. The surveillance teams had clearly studied facility security procedures and identified gaps in coverage that could be exploited for intelligence gathering or attack preparation. Dr. Amanda Foster's research schedule had been modified twice in the past month due to equipment deliveries and personnel changes that appeared routine but created patterns that hostile forces could exploit for operational planning. Emma recognized that the timing of these modifications corresponded with increased surveillance activity, suggesting that external forces were monitoring facility operations and adjusting their activities based on internal schedule changes. Correlation was subtle but consistent with intelligence gathering techniques that Emma had studied during her military service. The communication intercepts that Tyler Brooks had mentioned during casual conversation provided additional evidence of organized intelligence activity directed against the facility. His description of unusual radio traffic and electronic interference patterns matched techniques that foreign intelligence services used to test communication systems and identify vulnerabilities in security protocols. Tyler's background in amateur radio made him sensitive to electromagnetic anomalies that security personnel might dismiss as routine atmospheric interference. Emma's analysis of facility access logs revealed patterns in visitor schedules and maintenance activities that created opportunities for hostile forces to conduct detailed reconnaissance of security measures and facility layout. The timing of these activities suggested coordination with external surveillance, allowing hostile forces to gather comprehensive intelligence about facility operations while maintaining operational security. The patterns were subtle enough to avoid triggering routine security alerts, but consistent enough to indicate professional planning. Security Chief Chun's briefings continued to focus on routine security concerns without recognizing the indicators of organized intelligence gathering that Emma was detecting through her safety coordinator access and tactical analysis capabilities. Chun's training in corporate security provided excellent preparation for managing routine threats, but his experience didn't include countering sophisticated surveillance operations by personnel with advanced intelligence training. Emma's attempts to share her concerns were received politely but dismissed as overly cautious interpretations of routine activities. The afternoon meeting with department heads provided Emma with opportunities to observe employee reactions to security awareness reminders while gathering intelligence about project schedules and facility operations that could affect threat exposure. Her presentation about emergency procedures incorporated subtle questions about personnel schedules and research activities that revealed information about facility importance and vulnerability. The employees appreciated her thoroughness in safety planning while unknowingly providing details that enhanced her threat assessment capabilities. Jessica Kim's discussion about recent security clearance investigations revealed background check anomalies and personnel concerns that suggested potential compromise or recruitment activities by foreign intelligence services. The patterns were subtle and possibly innocent, but they indicated that hostile forces might be attempting to develop assets within the facility or gather intelligence about personnel who could be targeted for recruitment or coercion. Emma encouraged these conversations while carefully avoiding displays of knowledge that would seem inappropriate for a safety coordinator. The facility's computer network showed signs of probing and reconnaissance activities that suggested cyber intelligence gathering in coordination with physical surveillance operations. The network security team had noticed increased attempts to access restricted systems and unusual traffic patterns that could indicate organized efforts to gather intelligence about research projects and security procedures. Emma's knowledge of electronic warfare techniques allowed her to recognize these activities as components of comprehensive intelligence operations rather than routine cybercrime attempts. Director Thompson's confidence in existing security measures reflected corporate assumptions about threat levels and response capabilities that didn't account for the sophistication of organized intelligence operations. His experience with business security focused on protecting against industrial espionage and routine criminal activity rather than coordinated attacks by personnel with military training and government resources. Emma's attempts to suggest enhanced security measures were received as recommendations for general improvements rather than specific countermeasures for threats that civilian security assessment hadn't identified. The research laboratories contained equipment and materials that could be used to create improvised explosive devices or other weapon systems if hostile forces gained access to facility areas. Emma's safety inspections revealed storage and handling procedures that prioritized research efficiency over security considerations, creating opportunities for hostile forces to obtain dangerous materials or sabotage research activities. Her recommendations about improved storage and access controls were presented as safety improvements rather than security enhancements, to avoid revealing her tactical analysis capabilities. The employee evacuation procedures that Emma had developed incorporated movement techniques and communication protocols that would enhance survival during hostile action, but her colleagues interpreted these improvements as advanced safety planning rather than tactical preparation. The procedures included rally points that provided defensive advantages, communication methods that would function during electronic warfare conditions, and movement routes that minimized exposure to observation or direct fire. Emma's military experience allowed her to design civilian emergency procedures that incorporated tactical principles without revealing their military applications. The maintenance staff's access to all facility areas provided opportunities for hostile forces to gather detailed intelligence about building systems, security measures, and facility layout through recruitment or impersonation of legitimate personnel. Emma's relationships with maintenance workers allowed her to verify credentials and monitor activities, while gathering intelligence about facility capabilities and vulnerabilities. Her safety focus provided legitimate reasons for these interactions, while enabling her to detect potential security breaches or intelligence gathering activities. The quarterly budget review provided Emma with insights about planned facility improvements and security upgrades that could affect threat exposure and defensive capabilities. Her recommendations for enhanced communication systems, improved emergency lighting, and upgraded access controls were presented as cost-effective safety improvements that would reduce liability and enhance REGULATORY compliance. The actual benefits included countermeasures for electronic warfare, tactical lighting for combat operations, and security enhancements that would delay or prevent hostile penetration of critical facility areas. Tyler Brooks's enthusiasm for learning advanced safety procedures provided Emma with opportunities to train civilian personnel in techniques that would prove valuable during crisis situations, while maintaining focus on workplace safety requirements. His instruction in emergency communication protocols included radio procedures that would function during hostile jamming attempts. His training in evacuation techniques emphasized movement methods that would minimize casualties during combat operations. Tyler learned these procedures as comprehensive safety management without realizing he was receiving basic tactical training. As evening approached, Emma completed her daily threat assessment with growing certainty that organized intelligence gathering was progressing toward operational planning for action against the Northpoint facility. The indicators were accumulating too rapidly and consistently to represent coincidence or routine activity. Professional surveillance teams were conducting detailed reconnaissance. Facility vulnerabilities were being systematically identified and exploited, and coordination patterns suggested that hostile forces were preparing for operations that would exceed the capabilities of conventional security measures to detect or counter. The question was no longer whether an attack would occur, but when the intelligence gathering phase would transition to direct action against facility personnel and research assets. The quarterly safety meeting convened in Conference Room B with the punctual efficiency that characterized all Northpoint facility operations, bringing together department heads, security personnel, and administrative staff who viewed Emma's presentations as necessary compliance exercises rather than critical. Intelligence briefings. Director Marcus Thompson opened the session with remarks about the facility's excellent safety record and continued commitment to regulatory compliance, setting a tone that emphasized routine maintenance of existing standards rather than preparation for extraordinary circumstances that might require unconventional responses. Emma's presentation covered emergency evacuation procedures with slides that demonstrated comprehensive knowledge of facility layout and personnel movement patterns, but her audience interpreted the information as standard safety planning rather than tactical analysis designed to enhance survival during hostile action. When she recommended modifications to emergency assembly points that would provide better cover from potential sniper positions, Director Thompson saw logical improvements to existing procedures. Security Chief Chun viewed the changes as reasonable enhancements to evacuation efficiency. Neither recognized that Emma was positioning civilian personnel for defensive advantages during combat operations. The discussion about communication system upgrades revealed fundamental differences between civilian emergency planning and military tactical requirements that Emma couldn't address directly without compromising her cover. When she suggested redundant communication methods that would function during electronic warfare conditions, Thompson focused on cost considerations and REGULATORY compliance benefits. Seun emphasized improved coordination with law enforcement agencies. Emma's knowledge of jamming techniques and electronic countermeasures remained hidden behind recommendations that appeared to prioritize routine emergency management over battlefield communication requirements. Dr. Amanda Foster raised questions about laboratory emergency procedures that provided Emma with opportunities to address security vulnerabilities while maintaining focus on safety compliance. Her recommendations about modified chemical storage procedures would eliminate opportunities for hostile forces to create improvised explosive devices using research materials, but she presented these changes as improvements to environmental protection and worker safety rather than security enhancements. Foster appreciated the thoroughness of Emma's analysis while remaining unaware of its tactical implications. Jessica Kim's questions about personnel Emergency training revealed gaps in employee preparedness that could prove fatal during actual crisis situations. But the solutions Emma proposed had to balance tactical effectiveness with civilian comfort, levels, and corporate liability concerns. Her suggestions about stress response training and emergency decision-making exercises were designed to enhance personnel performance under combat conditions, but she framed them as general workplace safety improvements that would reduce panic and improve evacuation efficiency during routine emergencies. Tyler Brooks demonstrated enthusiasm for implementing Emma's recommendations without understanding their military applications, asking detailed questions about communication procedures and evacuation techniques that revealed his willingness to learn advanced capabilities while maintaining focus on civilian safety requirements. Emma's responses provided him with tactical knowledge disguised as comprehensive safety management, including radio protocols that would function during hostile jamming and movement techniques that would minimize exposure to direct fire. The budget discussion that followed Emma's presentation focused on cost-benefit analysis and regulatory compliance requirements rather than the strategic value of defensive improvements that could save lives during organized attacks. Director Thompson's business background led him to evaluate proposals based on liability reduction and efficiency improvements rather than tactical advantages that civilian threat assessment couldn't quantify. Emma's recommendations for enhanced lighting, improved communication systems, and upgraded access controls were approved as reasonable safety investments without recognition of their defensive applications. Security Chief Chun's response to Emma's suggestions about facility security improvements reflected professional competence within his area of expertise while revealing limitations in threat assessment that could prove dangerous if conventional security measures encountered sophisticated opposition. His experience with corporate protection provided excellent preparation for managing routine security concerns, but his evaluation of Emma's recommendations focused on compliance and procedural enhancement rather than defensive capabilities against organized military-style attacks. The meeting's conclusion emphasized continued commitment to safety excellence and regulatory compliance, with assignments for implementing Emma's recommendations distributed among department heads who viewed their new responsibilities as routine administrative tasks rather than critical preparation for potential combat operations. Director Thompson expressed satisfaction with the facility's safety program while remaining unaware that his safety coordinator possessed tactical knowledge that could prove essential for facility survival during hostile action. Emma's post-meeting conversations with individual department heads provided opportunities to gather additional intelligence about facility operations while ensuring that her recommendations would be implemented effectively despite their recipients' lack of understanding about tactical priorities. Her discussions with Dr. Foster about laboratory security focused on research protection and regulatory compliance, while secretly addressing vulnerabilities that hostile forces could exploit for sabotage or intelligence-gathering operations. The maintenance staff's questions about implementing Emma's facility improvements revealed practical concerns about installation procedures and operational requirements that could affect the tactical effectiveness of her recommendations. Emma's knowledge of defensive positioning and fields of fire allowed her to provide specific guidance about equipment placement and system configuration while maintaining focus on safety compliance and efficiency considerations that justified her detailed involvement in technical implementation decisions. Tyler Brooks's eagerness to learn advanced emergency procedures provided Emma with opportunities to train civilian personnel in tactical techniques while maintaining the appearance of comprehensive safety education. His instruction in personnel accountability methods included surveillance detection techniques disguised as situational awareness training. His education about emergency communication protocols incorporated radio discipline and signal security, procedures that would prove valuable during hostile electronic warfare operations. The facility's daily routine continued with apparent normalcy following the safety meeting. But Emma recognized that her colleagues' dismissal of her more advanced recommendations reflected institutional limitations that could prove fatal during actual crisis situations. The corporate hierarchy that gave her access to comprehensive facility information also prevented her from sharing tactical insights that civilian decision-makers weren't prepared to understand or implement effectively. Director Thompson's confidence in existing security measures reflected assumptions about threat levels and response capabilities that didn't account for the sophisticated surveillance and intelligence gathering activities that Emma had been detecting. Through her safety coordinator access and military analysis capabilities, his experience with business security focused on protecting against industrial espionage and routine criminal threats rather than coordinated attacks by personnel with advanced tactical training and government-level resources. The research teams' focus on project deadlines and technical challenges prevented them from recognizing security vulnerabilities in their daily routines and facility utilization patterns that hostile forces could exploit for operational planning and intelligence gathering. Dr. Foster's appreciation for Emma's safety recommendations reflected scientific attention to procedural improvement rather than understanding of defensive requirements during combat operations. Security Chief Chun's professional competence in the corporate protection provided valuable capabilities for managing routine security concerns, but his threat assessment methodology wasn't designed to detect or counter sophisticated intelligence operations by personnel with military training and advanced surveillance capabilities. His evaluation of facility security focused on access control and regulatory compliance rather than defensive preparation for organized attacks that could overwhelm CONVENTIONO protection measures. Emma's position as safety coordinator provided legitimate access to comprehensive facility information while preventing her from sharing tactical insights that could enhance security effectiveness against sophisticated threats. Her recommendations were implemented as safety improvements rather than defensive enhancements, providing some tactical advantages while maintaining institutional limitations that prevented optimal preparation for potential hostile action. The afternoon's activities proceeded with routine efficiency that demonstrated the facility's normal operational tempo, while concealing the surveillance and intelligence gathering operations that Emma continued to detect through her tactical analysis capabilities. The employees focused on their assigned responsibilities without recognizing that their predictable routines and security procedures were being studied by hostile forces for operational planning purposes. As evening approached, Emma completed her daily assessments with frustration about institutional barriers that prevented effective communication of tactical intelligence, while maintaining satisfaction about incremental improvements in facility defensive capabilities that had been achieved through careful presentation of military knowledge as civilian safety planning. The Northpoint facility continued its research operations while unknowingly benefiting from tactical analysis that went far beyond standard corporate safety coordination. But the fundamental limitations of civilian threat assessment and hierarchy-based decision-making remained obstacles to optimal defensive preparation. The surveillance activities that Emma had been tracking intensified during the following weeks, with progression from casual reconnaissance to detailed operational planning that indicated hostile forces were moving toward active preparation for operations against the Northpoint facility. The delivery vehicles that appeared in the parking area with increasing frequency showed coordination patterns and positioning techniques that suggested professional intelligence gathering rather than routine commercial activity. Emma documented these observations while maintaining her safety coordinator cover, building a comprehensive threat assessment that civilian security protocols weren't designed to recognize or counter. The maintenance personnel who had been requesting access to utility Areas and service corridors demonstrated knowledge of facility systems and security procedures that exceeded their apparent job requirements, asking questions about electrical systems, communication networks, and emergency procedures that suggested intelligence gathering for operational planning rather than routine service work. Emma's verification of their credentials revealed documentation that appeared legitimate, but contained inconsistencies that indicated sophisticated document forgery capabilities, typically associated with government-level intelligence operations. Dr. Amanda Foster's research teams reported equipment malfunctions and computer network anomalies that could indicate sabotage or cyber reconnaissance activities designed to disrupt facility operations while gathering intelligence about research, projects, and security systems. The patterns were subtle and possibly innocent, but Emma's military experience with electronic warfare techniques allowed her to recognize these incidents as components of comprehensive intelligence operations rather than routine technical problems. The communication intercepts that Tyler Brooks continued to monitor revealed increasing radio traffic on frequencies typically used by tactical operations teams, with transmission patterns and signal characteristics that indicated military style coordination rather than routine commercial or emergency service communications. Emma's knowledge of tactical communication procedures allowed her to interpret these signals as evidence of organized forces conducting detailed surveillance and preparation for operations against area targets. Emma's analysis of facility access logs and visitor schedules revealed patterns that suggested hostile forces were gathering intelligence about personnel routines, security procedures, and facility operations through multiple sources including social engineering, electronic surveillance, and physical reconnaissance. The coordination between different intelligence gathering methods indicated sophisticated operational planning by personnel with advanced training and significant resources. Security Chief Chun's daily briefings continued to focus on routine security concerns without recognizing the indicators of organized intelligence operations that Emma was detecting through her comprehensive facility access and tactical analysis capabilities. Her attempts to share concerns about suspicious activities were received as reasonable caution, but didn't trigger enhanced security measures or threat assessment procedures that could detect or counter sophisticated surveillance operations. The facility's computer network security team reported increasing attempts to penetrate restricted systems and access classified research data, with attack methods and persistence levels that indicated state-sponsored cyber operations rather than routine criminal hacking attempts. Emma's understanding of electronic warfare techniques allowed her to recognize these activities as coordination with physical surveillance for comprehensive intelligence gathering about facility capabilities and vulnerabilities. Director Thompson's meetings with government contract managers revealed that similar intelligence gathering activities were being reported at other defense research facilities throughout the region, suggesting a coordinated campaign targeting American defense research capabilities rather than isolated criminal activity directed against individual facilities. Emma's military intelligence background allowed her to recognize these reports as evidence of systematic foreign intelligence operations that could escalate to direct action against high-value targets. The employee cafeteria conversations that Emma monitored revealed increasing concern among personnel with security clearances about unusual activities and potential surveillance, but their reports were being dismissed by security authorities as routine security awareness concerns rather than indicators of actual intelligence operations. Emma's tactical knowledge allowed her to recognize that employee observations were providing valuable intelligence about hostile activities while being systematically discounted by civilian security assessment procedures. Jessica Kim's personnel security investigations revealed background anomalies and behavioral changes among employees that could indicate recruitment or compromise by foreign intelligence services, but the patterns were subtle enough to avoid triggering formal security investigations while being consistent enough to suggest organized efforts to develop assets within the facility. Emma's knowledge of recruitment techniques allowed her to recognize these indicators while maintaining her safety coordinator cover. The research laboratory showed signs of unauthorized access and equipment tampering that could indicate intelligence gathering about classified projects and security measures. But the incidents were subtle enough to be dismissed as routine maintenance issues or operator error, rather than deliberate sabotage or reconnaissance activities. Emma's facility access allowed her to document these anomalies, while recognizing their tactical significance for operational planning by hostile forces. Tyler Brooks's enthusiasm for learning advanced safety procedures provided Emma with opportunities to train him in tactical observation and reporting techniques disguised as situational awareness training, enhancing his ability to detect and document suspicious activities while maintaining focus on civilian safety requirements. His amateur radio background made him particularly valuable for monitoring communication activities and electronic warfare indicators that security personnel might not recognize. The facility's proximity to military installations and defense contractors created additional vulnerabilities that civilian security assessment didn't adequately address, including coordination opportunities for hostile forces operating against multiple targets and enhanced strategic value for intelligence operations designed to disrupt American defense research capabilities. Emma's military experience allowed her to recognize these broader strategic considerations while focusing on immediate facility protection requirements. The maintenance staff's comprehensive facility access provided opportunities for hostile forces to gather detailed intelligence about building systems, security measures, and defensive capabilities through recruitment or impersonation of legitimate personnel. Emma's relationships with maintenance workers allowed her to verify activities and monitor for potential security breaches while gathering intelligence about facility systems that could affect tactical operations during crisis situations. The quarterly security assessment conducted by outside contractors revealed routine compliance with corporate security standards, while missing indicators of sophisticated intelligence operations that Emma had been detecting through her tactical analysis capabilities. The assessment team's focus on procedural compliance and equipment functionality didn't include evaluation of threats that exceeded standard corporate security models, leaving critical vulnerabilities unaddressed despite apparent security adequacy. Emma's recommendations for enhanced security measures continued to be implemented as safety improvements rather than defensive preparations, providing incremental tactical advantages while maintaining institutional limitations that prevented optimal preparation for sophisticated threats. Her suggestions about communication upgrades, facility modifications, and personnel training were approved for their safety and compliance benefits without recognition of their defensive applications against organized military-style attacks. The afternoon briefings that Emma attended as part of her safety coordination responsibilities provided access to information about facility operations, personnel schedules, and security procedures that enhanced her threat assessment capabilities, while revealing institutional limitations in civilian threat recognition and response preparation. The professional competence of facility management within their areas of expertise contrasted sharply with their inability to recognize or counter sophisticated intelligence operations. As the evidence accumulated over successive weeks, Emma's assessment evolved from concern about potential surveillance to certainty that organized intelligence gathering was progressing toward operational planning for direct action against the Northpoint facility. The indicators were too numerous, too coordinated, and too consistent with professional intelligence techniques to represent coincidence or routine criminal activity. Hostile forces with advanced capabilities were systematically gathering intelligence about facility vulnerabilities, personnel patterns, and security measures while preparing for operations, that would exceed the defensive capabilities of conventional corporate protection measures. The challenge facing Emma was communicating the severity of the threat to decision-makers whose experience and institutional frameworks weren't designed to recognize or respond to sophisticated intelligence operations by personnel with military training and government-level resources. Her position as safety coordinator provided access to comprehensive facility information while preventing her from sharing tactical insights that could enhance defensive effectiveness against the level of threat she was detecting through her military analysis capabilities. The convergence of intelligence indicators during the third week of October created a comprehensive threat picture that confirmed Emma's assessment of imminent hostile action against the Northpoint facility, with surveillance activities, communication intercepts, and facility reconnaissance reaching levels that indicated final preparation for coordinated military-style operations. The pattern of activities showed progression from initial target assessment to detailed operational planning, with hostile forces demonstrating capabilities and coordination that exceeded anything civilian. Security protocols were designed to detect or counter. Tyler Brooks's monitoring of tactical communication frequencies revealed transmission patterns that indicated multiple teams conducting coordinated surveillance and reconnaissance activities throughout the Colorado Springs area, with signal characteristics and coordination protocols that suggested military or intelligence service training rather than routine commercial or criminal communications. Emma's analysis of these intercepts identified specific indicators of operational planning, including equipment testing, personnel coordination, and timing discussions that pointed toward imminent action against area defense facilities. The vehicle surveillance that Emma had been tracking showed final positioning and coordination activities consistent with immediate pre-assault reconnaissance, with observation teams establishing comprehensive coverage of facility entrances, security patrol routes, and personnel movement patterns, while maintaining communication with additional forces positioned outside the immediate surveillance area. The sophistication of these operations indicated professional military planning supported by extensive intelligence gathering and advanced coordination capabilities. Dr. Amanda Foster's research teams reported increasing computer network intrusions and equipment malfunctions that followed patterns consistent with cyber warfare operations designed to disrupt facility communications and security systems during physical assault operations. Emma's knowledge of electronic warfare techniques allowed her to recognize these activities as preparation for coordinated attacks that would combine cyber disruption with physical assault to overwhelm facility defenses and achieve operational objectives before law enforcement response could prove effective. The maintenance personnel who had been gathering intelligence about facility systems and security procedures disappeared from their assigned work areas without completing scheduled service activities, leaving behind equipment and documentation that suggested their primary mission had been intelligence gathering rather than legitimate maintenance work. Emma's investigation of their credentials revealed sophisticated document forgery and identity creation that indicated government-level intelligence capabilities rather than routine industrial espionage operations. Security Chief Chun's daily briefings began reporting unusual activities and communication anomalies that confirmed Emma's assessment of organized intelligence operations, but his interpretation of these indicators focused on enhanced security awareness rather than immediate preparation for defensive operations against coordinated military-style assault. Emma's attempts to emphasize the urgency of the threat situation were received as reasonable caution but didn't trigger the level of defensive preparation that would be required to counter sophisticated hostile forces. The facility's proximity to other defense research installations created additional intelligence indicators as similar surveillance and reconnaissance activities were reported at multiple locations throughout the region, suggesting coordinated intelligence operations targeting American defense research capabilities rather than isolated criminal activity directed against individual facilities. Emma's military intelligence background allowed her to recognize these regional patterns as evidence of systematic preparation for major operations against defense infrastructure. Emma's analysis of employee behavioral patterns and communication activities revealed indicators that some personnel might be providing information to hostile forces through recruitment, compromise, or unwitting cooperation with intelligence. Gathering operations. The patterns were subtle and required careful analysis to distinguish from routine workplace communications, but they suggested that hostile forces had developed assets within the facility who could provide real-time intelligence. During assault operations, the research laboratories showed evidence of detailed reconnaissance, including measurement of facility layout, assessment of security systems, and evaluation of equipment that could be targeted for destruction or intelligence gathering during hostile operations. Emma's safety inspections revealed signs of unauthorized access and systematic evaluation that indicated professional operational planning rather than routine industrial espionage or criminal activity. Jessica Kim's personnel security investigations confirmed behavioral anomalies and background inconsistencies that suggested foreign intelligence recruitment or compromise activities targeting facility personnel with access to classified research projects and security information. The scope and sophistication of these operations indicated systematic efforts to develop intelligence assets rather than opportunistic recruitment by routine criminal organizations. The communication systems that Emma had recommended for upgrade showed signs of electronic reconnaissance and vulnerability assessment that indicated hostile forces were preparing countermeasures for facility, emergency communications, and security coordination. Emma's knowledge of electronic warfare techniques allowed her to recognize these activities as preparation for comprehensive disruption of facility defenses during assault operations. Tyler Brooks's technical analysis of electronic surveillance indicators revealed coordination between cyber, reconnaissance, and physical surveillance that indicated unified command and control for operations, targeting multiple facilities simultaneously. His amateur radio expertise provided insights about tactical communication procedures and electronic warfare capabilities that confirmed Emma's assessment of military-level threat sophistication. The facility's daily routine showed subtle modifications and schedule changes that could indicate hostile forces were using intelligence assets to optimize timing for assault operations, while minimizing facility defensive capabilities and maximizing opportunities for successful penetration of security systems. Emma's recognition of these patterns was based on tactical knowledge that allowed her to identify operational indicators that civilian security assessment couldn't detect. Director Thompson's confidence in existing security measures continued despite increasing evidence of sophisticated intelligence operations, reflecting institutional limitations in civilian threat assessment that prevented recognition of military-level threats requiring defensive responses beyond routine corporate security capabilities. Emma's attempts to communicate the severity of the situation were constrained by her need to maintain cover while providing tactical insights that civilian decision-makers weren't prepared to understand or implement. The quarterly budget review revealed that Emma's recommendations for enhanced security measures had been approved for implementation as safety improvements, providing incremental defensive capabilities while maintaining institutional focus on regulatory compliance rather than preparation for hostile action. The tactical advantages created by these improvements would prove valuable during crisis situations, but they represented only partial preparation for the level of threat that Emma's intelligence analysis indicated was approaching. The maintenance staff's comprehensive knowledge of facility systems and security measures represented a significant vulnerability if hostile forces had succeeded in recruiting or replacing legitimate personnel with intelligence operatives. Emma's verification procedures had identified some anomalies, But the scope of potential compromise required defensive assumptions that civilian security protocols weren't designed to accommodate. As intelligence indicators converged toward confirmation of imminent hostile action, Emma faced the challenge of preparing for operations that her colleagues couldn't recognize or understand, while maintaining the safety coordinator cover that provided her access to critical facility information. The tactical knowledge that could save lives during crisis situations remained constrained by institutional hierarchies and civilian threat assessment limitations that prevented optimal defensive preparation. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable to anyone with military intelligence training, but translating that evidence into defensive action required breaking through institutional barriers that treated sophisticated threats as beyond the scope of corporate security planning. Emma's position provided her with comprehensive situational awareness while preventing her from implementing the defensive measures that her tactical analysis indicated would be necessary for facility survival during coordinated military-style assault operations. The morning of October 23rd brought clear skies and routine facility operations that masked the final preparations being completed by hostile forces whose intelligence gathering had progressed to immediate pre-assault coordination, with surveillance teams confirming personnel schedules and security patterns, while assault elements moved into position for operations that would test every defensive capability that Emma had been developing through her safety coordinator activities. The normalcy of the morning routine created stark contrast with the tactical situation that Emma recognized through intelligence indicators that civilian security assessment couldn't detect or counter. Emma's pre-dawn facility inspection revealed signs that unauthorized personnel had accessed secure areas during overnight hours, leaving subtle evidence of reconnaissance activities that included measurement of facility layout, assessment of security systems, and evaluation of defensive positions that suggested final preparation for coordinated assault operations. The indicators were subtle enough to avoid triggering routine security alerts, but comprehensive enough to confirm that hostile forces possessed detailed intelligence about facility vulnerabilities and defensive capabilities. Dr. Amanda Foster arrived for her morning research activities, unaware that her laboratory access codes and security procedures had been compromised through electronic surveillance and social engineering operations that provided hostile forces with real-time intelligence about facility operations and personnel locations. Emma's observation of these activities through her safety coordinator access revealed that facility security had been systematically penetrated without triggering defensive responses that could warn personnel about imminent danger. The communication systems that connected the Northpoint facility to law enforcement and emergency response agencies showed signs of electronic warfare preparation, including signal jamming and network penetration that would prevent outside assistance from responding effectively to crisis situations. Emma's knowledge of electronic warfare techniques allowed her to recognize these preparations as components of comprehensive assault planning designed to isolate the facility and prevent defensive coordination with external authorities. Tyler Brooks's monitoring of tactical communication frequencies detected final coordination transmissions between assault teams positioning around the facility perimeter, with signal characteristics and operational terminology that confirmed military-level training and equipment rather than routine criminal activity. Emma's analysis of these intercepts revealed that hostile forces were implementing assault procedures designed to overwhelm facility security and achieve operational objectives before defensive responses could prove effective. Security Chief Chun's morning briefing focused on routine security concerns without recognizing that facility defenses were already compromised through intelligence penetration and electronic warfare preparation that had neutralized conventional security measures while providing hostile forces with comprehensive situational awareness about personnel locations and defensive capabilities. Emma's attempts to communicate the urgency of the threat situation were constrained by institutional limitations that prevented sharing tactical insights without compromising her cover. The facility's personnel arrived for normal work activities, unaware that their movements and communications were being monitored by assault teams, whose intelligence gathering had created comprehensive awareness of facility operations, security procedures, and personnel schedules that would prove decisive. During coordinated operations designed to achieve specific objectives while minimizing resistance from defensive forces, Emma's safety coordinator position provided her with unique insight into these vulnerabilities while preventing her from implementing countermeasures that could save lives during actual assault operations. Director Thompson's confidence in facility security reflected corporate assumptions about threat levels and defensive capabilities that didn't account for the sophisticated intelligence operations and assault preparation that Emma had been detecting through her tactical analysis capabilities. His morning meetings with research team leaders proceeded with focus on project deadlines and technical challenges while remaining unaware that facility operations were being monitored by hostile forces. Preparing for immediate action, the research laboratories contained classified materials and equipment that represented primary objectives for intelligence gathering or sabotage operations, but security measures designed for routine protection proved inadequate against coordinated assault by personnel with military training and comprehensive facility intelligence. Emma's safety inspections revealed vulnerabilities that civilian security assessment couldn't detect while identifying tactical opportunities that could prove valuable during defensive operations. Emma's analysis of final intelligence indicators confirmed that assault operations would commence within hours, with hostile forces demonstrating capabilities and coordination that exceeded anything facility defenses were designed to counter through routine security procedures. The tactical situation required immediate implementation of defensive measures that went far beyond corporate safety protocols, but institutional limitations prevented sharing this assessment with decision-makers who lacked training to understand or respond to military-level threats. The maintenance areas and utility corridors that Emma had been monitoring showed evidence of final preparation activities, including equipment placement en route, confirmation that indicated assault teams were ready to implement infiltration procedures designed to penetrate facility security while avoiding detection by conventional surveillance systems. Emma's knowledge of tactical movement and facility layout allowed her to recognize these preparations while maintaining safety coordinator cover that provided access to critical defensive information. Jessica Kim's personnel security activities revealed that several employees with access to classified research projects had exhibited behavioral changes and communication patterns that suggested compromise or recruitment by hostile intelligence services, creating internal threats that could provide real-time assistance to assault operations while undermining facility defensive capabilities. Emma's recognition of these indicators was based on military intelligence training that civilian security procedures weren't designed to detect or counter. The facility's communication systems began experiencing intermittent disruptions and electronic interference that indicated hostile forces were testing countermeasures that would prevent defensive coordination and outside assistance during assault operations. Emma's knowledge of electronic warfare techniques allowed her to recognize these activities as final preparation for comprehensive communication disruption that would isolate facility personnel during crisis situations. Tyler Brooks's technical analysis confirmed that the facility computer networks and security systems were experiencing systematic penetration and vulnerability assessment that indicated immediate preparation for cyber warfare operations designed to support physical assault with electronic disruption of defensive capabilities. His expertise in communication technology provided insights that enhanced Emma's tactical assessment while confirming the sophistication of hostile operations. The tactical situation that Emma had been tracking through intelligence analysis reached Critical threshold as all indicators converged toward confirmation of imminent assault operations by professionally trained forces with comprehensive facility intelligence and advanced coordination capabilities. The moment for preventive action had passed, leaving only reactive defensive options that required capabilities beyond anything civilian security training provided. Emma's position as safety coordinator had provided perfect cover for gathering intelligence about threats that conventional security assessment couldn't detect, but the institutional limitations that protected her cover also prevented implementation of defensive measures that could counter sophisticated assault operations. The knowledge and skills that could save facility personnel remained constrained by corporate hierarchies and civilian threat assessment limitations that treated military-level threats as beyond the scope of routine security planning. As morning progressed toward the timing that Emma's analysis indicated would mark the beginning of assault operations, the Northpoint facility continued routine research activities while remaining unaware that their safety coordinator possessed tactical knowledge and combat experience that would soon become the only thing standing between professional survival and catastrophic failure of every defensive system that corporate security had been designed to provide. The assault began at exactly 11:47 a.m. with the precision timing that Emma had predicted, as 12 heavily armed mercenaries breached the Northpoint facility through multiple entry points while electronic warfare systems disabled communication networks and security cameras with coordination that demonstrated months of intelligence gathering and operational planning. The first indication of crisis came through the facility's fire alarm system, which had been triggered by explosive charges that created diversionary chaos while assault teams penetrated the building's defensive perimeter through routes that avoided primary security coverage areas. Security Chief Chun's response followed established corporate emergency procedures with professional competence that proved inadequate against coordinated military-style assault operations designed to overwhelm conventional defensive measures before law enforcement assistance could arrive. His security team attempted to coordinate resistance through communication systems that had been systematically compromised by electronic warfare, while implementing lockdown procedures that actually aided hostile forces by concentrating facility personnel in predictable locations that intelligence gathering had identified as primary targets. The security guards stationed throughout the facility demonstrated courage and dedication while lacking the tactical training necessary to counter assault teams equipped with military-grade weapons and comprehensive facility intelligence. Their attempts to establish defensive positions were anticipated by hostile forces whose reconnaissance had mapped every security post, communication route, and defensive advantage that conventional corporate security relied upon for facility protection. Within minutes of initial contact, the security team was neutralized through coordinated attacks that exploited their positioning and communication vulnerabilities. Director Thompson's response to the crisis followed corporate emergency management protocols that assumed outside assistance would arrive within minutes to handle serious threats. But the electronic warfare systems deployed by hostile forces had disabled the communication networks that connected the facility to law enforcement and emergency response agencies. His attempts to coordinate evacuation procedures through the facility's intercom system were blocked by jamming equipment, while his office location made him an immediate target for hostile forces seeking to neutralize facility leadership and prevent organized resistance. The research laboratories became primary objectives for assault teams whose intelligence gathering had identified specific projects and personnel that represented high-value targets for intelligence collection or elimination. Dr. Amanda Foster's attempts to implement security protocols for protecting classified materials proved futile against hostile forces equipped with detailed facility maps and comprehensive knowledge of security procedures, storage locations, and personnel access codes that had been obtained through systematic surveillance and electronic reconnaissance. Emma's initial response followed safety coordinator protocols that required her to assist with personnel evacuation and emergency communication. But her tactical assessment revealed that conventional emergency procedures were actually increasing casualties by moving facility personnel through routes that hostile forces had anticipated and prepared to exploit. The evacuation routes that corporate emergency planning considered optimal became killing zones where concentrated personnel provided easy targets for assault teams positioned at strategic locations throughout the facility. Tyler Brooks attempted to coordinate emergency communication through amateur RADIO equipment that provided temporary connectivity with outside authorities, but his transmissions were immediately jammed by electronic warfare systems while his location was triangulated by hostile forces equipped with sophisticated signal detection equipment. His enthusiasm for emergency procedures became liability rather than asset as conventional training provided no preparation for combat operations by professionally trained assault teams with military-grade equipment and coordination. The facilities, computer networks and security systems experienced systematic failure as cyber warfare operations disabled defensive capabilities while providing hostile forces with real-time intelligence about personnel locations and facility operations. The backup systems that corporate security relied upon for redundancy proved vulnerable to coordinated electronic attack that had been prepared through months of network reconnaissance and vulnerability assessment by personnel with advanced technical capabilities. Jessica Kim's attempts to account for facility personnel and coordinate evacuation procedures were hampered by communication disruption and the chaos created by coordinated assault operations that had been designed to maximize confusion while minimizing organized resistance. Her knowledge of personnel locations and security procedures became tactical intelligence for hostile forces who had compromised facility communications and were monitoring emergency coordination efforts while adjusting their operations to counter defensive responses. The law enforcement response that corporate security protocols assumed would provide rapid assistance was delayed by electronic warfare operations that disrupted emergency communication networks while providing false information that misdirected initial response efforts away from the Northpoint facility. The coordination between cyber warfare and physical assault operations demonstrated sophisticated planning that had anticipated and prepared countermeasures for every aspect of conventional emergency response procedures. The facility's emergency lighting and backup power systems functioned according to design specifications, but their configuration had been compromised through intelligence gathering that allowed hostile forces to anticipate illumination patterns and power distribution that would affect their operational capabilities. Emma's safety improvements had enhanced some defensive characteristics, but the overall facility response remained inadequate against coordinated assault by personnel whose preparation had included detailed analysis of facility capabilities and vulnerabilities. Dr. Foster's research teams attempted to destroy sensitive materials and equipment to prevent intelligence compromise, but their procedures were too slow and too visible to prevent hostile forces from achieving their primary objectives of intelligence collection and facility neutralization. The protocols designed for routine security threats proved inadequate for military-style operations that prioritize speed and violence over stealth and minimal detection. The medical emergency procedures that Emma had designed for workplace safety proved partially effective for treating casualties from hostile action, but the scale and intensity of coordinated assault operations overwhelmed the facility's emergency medical capabilities while creating additional targets for hostile forces seeking to eliminate potential witnesses and intelligence sources. The first aid training that civilian personnel had received provided minimal preparation for treating combat injuries under continuing hostile fire. Security Chief Chun's final communication attempts revealed that conventional corporate security assessment had failed to recognize or prepare for the level of threat sophistication that characterized the assault operations, with hostile forces demonstrating capabilities that exceeded anything civilian protection protocols were designed to counter. His professional competence in routine security management proved inadequate for tactical operations that required military training and combat experience rather than corporate security procedures. The facility's physical security measures, including access controls, surveillance systems, and barrier construction, provided minimal delay against assault teams, equipped with specialized breaching equipment and comprehensive facility intelligence that had identified optimal penetration routes and defensive weaknesses. The corporate security design that emphasized deterrence and detection proved inadequate for stopping determined assault by professionally trained forces with military-grade capabilities. Emma's observation of the failed conventional response confirmed her assessment that facility survival would require capabilities beyond anything corporate emergency planning had envisioned, with defensive success dependent upon tactical knowledge and combat experience that civilian personnel weren't expected to possess. The institutional limitations that had prevented sharing her tactical insights with facility management were now creating casualties that proper defensive preparation could have minimized or prevented entirely. The systematic failure of conventional defensive measures within the first 15 minutes of assault operations demonstrated that corporate security protocols and emergency procedures were inadequate for countering coordinated military-style attacks by personnel with advanced training and sophisticated equipment. The assumption that routine security measures could protect high-value facilities against serious threats had proven catastrophically incorrect, leaving facility personnel dependent upon defensive capabilities that civilian institutions weren't designed to provide. As hostile forces consolidated their control over facility operations while neutralizing conventional defensive responses, Emma faced the decision whether to maintain her safety coordinator cover or reveal the tactical capabilities that could turn the engagement from systematic slaughter into defensive combat operations with potential for facility survival and personnel protection. The moment had arrived when institutional limitations and civilian assumptions about threat levels would determine whether specialized knowledge could be applied to save lives that conventional procedures had failed to protect. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.